The third and final component is bringing in this circular amber calligraphy into the final piece. I have the calligraphy here scanned. This again was all hand done, of course, and then digitally mastered. Each amber in here was simply copied, and then the angle of that was, I think it was like 15 degrees or something like that, and each one kind of went around the circle. I write about this in my blog. I certainly recommend that you check it out, how to do this. There's a special way you have to do it. You have to use a circular grid for one, and two, you have to keep the center point intact before you do this. I should do a complete piece on how to do these, maybe at a later date. But basically, I'm going to bring this into the final sort of calligraphy piece just by dragging it and dropping it into the Amber tutorial. And you notice that's not exactly how I want it to show up, but that's okay. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to invert it because the final color is actually white. So I'm going to do a little inversion here. And still not how I want it, but it's getting there. Now I want to remove the black. Again, I use colored alpha. It's a fantastic tool. Black is already defined here, so if I scan around, you'll notice that it just leaves me with the white lettering, which is what I want. It removes all existence of black. And now you can see the amber image show up below. I'm going to rotate this ever so slightly, and I'm going to actually first move it to the top, and then click on it to rotate, clicking on the rotate tool, of course, and drag that out of the way a little bit, and I'm going to, whoops, too much, something like that. Let's see how that looks. It's not, of course, the original size that I used in the final piece, but it just to give you a hint of kind of how this works and how it all comes together. It's an example. So it's done the rotation. I'm going to move it by using the move tool over here. Click on that. Click on the white part of the image here, and then move it so that it appears somewhere along the calligraphy, somewhere in the back. It's not in her face, but it's near it. Something like that. I'm going to take this layer and then move it behind the calligraphy, so all I have to do is move it down, and that puts it below the original amber calligraphy. And when I did this, I noticed that it was too white, it was standing out way too much. So the mode I used for this particular layer was, I believe it was Dodge or Burn, one of those two layers there. Gave it the effect that I was after. I think it was Dodge. Don't believe it was Overlay. For whatever reason, Dodge right now is coming out way too intense. I can bring down the opacity on that, and essentially that was the technique I used. For whatever reason, in this image, it's not showing up exactly as I wanted. One other thing here you'll notice in the final image is it's not just a pink or purple sort of representation. There's an additional color, and I'll show you how I did that. Click on the main FIL layer, and then click New Layer, and use Transparency. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Filters, I'm going to go Render, and I'm going to go Clouds, and I'm going to go Plasma. And I'm going to use the default setting here, and I'm going to render these plasma clouds onto that particular layer. It takes a little while, and it will cover up the original image. And I'm going to bring that to the top a little bit. And a little bit lower. One down. Notice it covers the whole image, and that's fine. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Filters, and I'm going to blur using a Gaussian blur. I'm going to go really large value of like 50. And then once this is complete, it's a very soft sort of looking image. You can go even a higher value than that if you want. And then I'm going to turn this mode of this layer to Overlay. And that starts to add a little bit of color into the final image. And basically, that is the Amber tutorial. That's how I created this piece, more or less. Of course, when I did the original, I took more time and probably more care in the way the effects look. But essentially, that's it. Thanks very much for watching.